Now, I've not heard of many female serial killers, and you've covered a few of these. Can you tell us about Joanne Dennehy? Is that how it's pronounced?
Mm. Joanne Dennehy is, in my opinion, one of the most heinous serial killers that I've ever met or interviewed or worked with or written to or did anything on in all of my career of interviewing serial killers, men and women. She is, I think, 35 now, but when she was committing offences around about 33 years old. She's not a big woman. She's quite pretty. She's quite petite when she's got her makeup on. She had a really good education. She came from a middle-class family and she had a younger sister. Parents tried to bring her up well and she went right off the rails, and she killed 3 men in Peterborough, stabbing them more times than you could dream of. One when a guy was drunk, he was an innocent guy and he went to bed, he got drunk and she stabbed him to death 40 times. She killed a Polish guy that she met. She invited him round for a drink. She met him the day before in a mall and stabbed him in the heart. And then she killed her landlord employer. She was like a bouncer getting rid of dodgy tenants. She lured this happily married man allegedly round to one of his places. He put on a sequin skirt because he was a bit kinky, and she stabbed him to death, and her and her accomplice dumped him in a dike near Peterborough.
Who was her accomplice?
Gary Stretch, 6'8" Gary Stretch. And they positioned the body with, I think it's an aerosol container pushed up his anus so the world could see, posing the bodies. And then they fled down to the West Country to Gloucester, I think it was, or somewhere. And then she attacked 2 men in broad daylight walking their dogs, stabbed them in the street. And then after the first attack, she was stood there licking the blood off the blade. And she stabbed, and when 10 minutes later, she stabbed another man half to death with 40. And then the police caught her. And
how long did she go on this killing rampage for?
Well, the first series, the 3 kills were committed all within a week. The 2 attempt murders were committed all within 10 minutes. So
what made her snap?
She had a hatred for women, basically. She was a control freak. She could charm men with her flirting, but if a man went to bed with her, you'd be lucky to wake up in the morning. She is Satan's spawn. She has tried to escape in prison, HMP Bronzefield. She tried to cut the finger off a prison guard's hand because she wanted to use it as a key to get out. She threatened one of her lesbian lovers with murder. She was put in a special housing unit. She was there for 6 months isolation, and then she tried to sue the British government because of her prison conditions. And so the prison's between a rock and hard place. They can't let her into the general population because she's going to kill somebody. But if they keep her segregated, she sues. But the shocking thing is she wanted to marry one of her prison girlfriend inmates. And the taxpayer was being asked to foot the bill. So I put in one of my books, hands up anybody who wants to buy the cake.
You described quite a normal upbringing. Was she abused? Was she addicted to drugs?
She had a perfectly normal upbringing. She started off on the drink trial when she was about 14, when she met some fairground workers, travelling fairground workers, who got her into drink and drugs and hard drugs. And that definitely affected her mind, because it with a young person, the brain doesn't stop developing until the age of 20, 21. So all these toxic chemicals going into her body affected her brain, and there's no doubt about that.
That was about 14. And how old was she when she was doing these kills?
About 30, 31, 32.
Were there any arrests? Were there any arrests in that intermittent period from 14 to 31
Yes,
for
there
any
were.
other?
She was sectioned a couple of times under the Mental Health Act. I think she attacked one guy with a razor blade in a furious rage or something. But she can only be held for a certain amount of time before they released her. I think there were what we'd call minor offences compared with homicide, yeah.
I think I've heard of Gary Stretch. Can you tell us his story, please?
Well, what an arsehole. He, 6'7", 6'7", gotta be. She called him the Undertaker because he was the one that, with her, she couldn't drive. So they got a car. And he had to drive, but he was so tall he had to drive it with his hands up to the steering wheel like this. But he was an idiot, and he'd fallen in love with her. He was like a puppy to her. She would whistle and he'd do whatever she wanted. But he was a burglar originally, but as one of the police officers said to me, Chris, he could never have been a good burglar because he had size 15 feet. He said, and when he crawled through a window, it took half an hour before his feet followed him. He said he was told by his wife, Gary, stop it. This is not for you. So he spent time in jail as well. And there is a suggestion at one point that he was involved in the murder of another inmate in prison, but it was never proven.
So were they both convicted of murder?
Yes.
And was there a trial, or did they just sign a plea bargain or something?
There was a trial for all of them. But Jo, she put her hands up straight away. She stunned her lawyers because when the judge said, "Are you plead guilty or not guilty?" she just stuck her hand up and said guilty, and then she started swearing at the judge.
So what sentence did she get?
Natural life.
What about Stretch?
He's got basically natural life as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he got I think 18 years, but he will die in prison.
What was his role in the murders then?
He was accomplice.
Accomplice. Was
Yeah.
he stabbing people as well?
No, he was the enabler. He was the one that drove her around. He was the one that moved the bodies with her. He was like an enforcer.
Did they make an attempt to dispose of bodies?
Well, yeah, if you can call throwing them in a ditch, yes.
So they're never getting out then?
No, the interesting thing is she's ranked with Rose West and Mara Hindley. She will serve a natural life sentence and she will never be released. Only in a pine box she'll come out of jail.